Okay, this is a walkthrough video for part 3 of this Excel lab that we're working on. Okay, so we're supposed to take a look at some vehicle data that we can load. So we're going to load that in from an Excel file and copy and paste that into your Excel file. So I'm assuming you've done that step. It's just select all the data and copy and paste it into a new tab that you open up for Excel. Okay, so maybe walk through that just in case. All right, so I open this file, I select this upper corner, that gives me everything, and then I can go up to, I can do Control C. All right, go to a new tab, click in the top square, Control V. I've got all the data. All right, so maybe, what I do, I think I've mentioned this in the other video, is I usually put the original data in a separate tab just so that if it gets messed up, I still have it in an accurate form. Okay, so this is our lab that we're working on. You can call it my car data. Whatever you like, okay? All right, so one of the things we're supposed to do, if you look at the instructions on the lab, is find the maximum and minimum fuel economy and determine the average MPG for number of cylinders. And then later on, you're supposed to plot fuel economy versus horsepower, okay? So let's worry about the first one, okay? So we have data here, and we're wanting to know max, okay? Let's make sure we read that right. Maximum and minimum fuel economy. Okay, so what we can do here is put a label. All right, so I'm calling that maximum MPG. Adjust the column size just because I wanted to. That's too wide, so I'm just going to call it max MPG. And then let me change this view too to make it bigger so you can see it. Okay, max MPG, min MPG. All right, so those are just labels and cells, and I want to actually calculate the max and min. And it turns out that Excel has functions, and we would guess that it would have a max function. And so I start typing, and it gives me a drop-down list. And yes, indeed, it has a max function. Okay, so we're doing max, and then we want to know MPG. So I select the starting point here, and then I hold the shift key down is the way I do it. Go all the way down to the end and shift enter. And you see up in this window, it's filled out the range for this max function. So I close the bracket, hit return, and there's max MPG showing up to the right of the cell that I labeled max MPG. Okay, so there we go. All right, so that's good. We do the same thing, and a shortcut would be Control C, Control V. All right. Now notice what happens here. G2 through G393 is what's listed here, and G3 through G394. That happens to capture the same data range, but you have to be careful when you cut and paste formulas because this data range does not change, and when I pasted this, it updated the row numbers based on the fact that I split this copy down by one row. Okay, so if you're going to do cutting and pasting of a data range and that data range does not change, that's where the dollar indexing comes from. Okay, so I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to put dollar signs in front of everything. Okay, hit return. Okay, now Control C, Control V. All right, I look here. This is in the first square. that I'm clicking on. It's $G, $2. This one's $G, $3.93. Okay, when I pasted this in here, $G, $2, $G, $3.93. So the data range has not changed because the dollar signs force that. Okay, it's cool. So from there, I just say, okay, min. All right. So I changed that from max to min. You could have just started over and typed from the beginning. I just wanted to show you that about the indexing. Okay, so next, we want, the next part of the requirement, we found max and min. I know I'm walking through giving you the answers, but you need to do this on your own, okay? So I just don't want you to struggle with it and spend lots and lots of time. So, all right, next, we're going to determine the average MPG for each of the cylinders. Let me show you how to do one of those, okay? All right, so we could put cylinders here, all right? And if I look at this list, all right, I go through this data, this is already sorted by cylinders, all right? And that actually makes things work out pretty easy for us, but it could create some problems for us as well. I want to show you why in a second. Okay. All right, so it's already sorted by cylinders, all right? And so we see the choices 3, 4, there's an oddball 5-cylinder, 6-cylinder. We don't see any 7s, and then we see 8s. Okay, so those are our choices for cylinders. And so we go through this list. We can write down 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. All right. So from here, we can use an Excel command. All right, and this would be average. All right, so we want to do the average. Okay, and now I just use my mouse to find where all the 3-cylinder cells happen to be. So I click here, hold the shift key down, click here, and that tells me the average for the 3s. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and do the rest of it because we want to later on plot this, and I need the data to do that. Okay, so average. All right, 4. Where's all the 4s? So we scroll down here and I find the last 4 here. I hold down the shift key, hit enter, and that gives me the average for the, I'm sorry, I got the wrong column. Let me try that again. Average. Okay, I want MPG columns. 3 to 3, return. Average on the 4-cylinder MPG, 4, all the way down to the last 4. Which is right here. Return. 5 equal average. I forgot to do that right. Equal average, and then I go and I look for where there's 5-cylinder engines, and I'm looking at the MPGs, hit return. Okay, so you get the idea. We'll finish this off. Six is here. Starting here and going to here. All right, so there's 6 cylinders, and then 8 cylinders equal average. you find those cells on the MPG column. So you can follow along and do that. All right. I think that I would, at this point, format these cells because there's too many decimal places, and I just would want it to look a little cleaner. So let's just do one decimal place. Okay. So now we have cylinders, and what we know is that this is average MPG. All right, so at this point we're ready to insert a chart, okay? And so it's the same thing before, only this time if you read the instructions, it says plot these as a column chart with the number of cylinders as the x-axis, okay? This is where, you got to play around a little bit with Excel. All right, so I'm going to select that, and then before, if you remember, insert was the key. You go to the insert, and you can look at some recommended charts here, and this is kind of what we're after. When you go through here, you hit select, and what you see here is average MPG, all right, and then the x-axis, look, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, there's no 8 here, so it's not plotting this as a data series, it's plotting this as a category. The category that you're plotting is this number of cylinders. So that's what you're after, okay? And then you can add some, make it look better by just choosing different options, but you get the idea, all right? So read through the instructions and do the formatting that it asks there. I think that's actually good enough, okay? Here's the thing that I want to show you. The way we've approached this, it's possible to do sorting very easily within Excel. All right, so I'm going to select all the data. I'm going to do a sort. Okay, my list has headers. Okay, I can sort by, maybe we wanted model of car. All right, so when I do that sort, I get an alphabetical list of the car models. But what happened? Let me undo that. I didn't mean to select such a large range. Okay. Right, I wanted to just select the data. Okay, so we select all the data. Okay, and I do a sort. Before I do that sort, let's look at this chart. The average MPG for 3-cylinder is 20.6, for 4, 29.3. Remember those two numbers. Okay, so when I do this sort, my model of car, what happened to the average MPG? Well, these formulas, they still went over the G2 through G5 range, G6 through G204 range. It was based on the previous sort. Okay, so if you sort the data without taking, writing the Excel functions in a way that to make this more robust to data sorts, you just have to be cautious. Okay, there's a way of pulling data like this without having to worry about sorts. Okay, but that's beyond the scope of where we are in Excel right now. So for now, just be very cautious when you make a formula that depends on a certain order of the data, like this one did, then you need to be sure you don't change the order of the data so that your results are accurate. Okay, so I wanted to give you that word of warning. That's something you'll always have to think about when you use Excel. Okay, so let's sort this back. Okay, so data, sort, sort, okay, and I want to sort by MPG. Actually, I want to sort by cylinder, and I want from smallest to largest. Okay, so get that data sorted back, and we get back to our original answers. Okay, so there's that. All right. Okay, the next part, if you read the instructions, it's asking you to plot fuel economy versus horsepower. Okay, so think of it this way: X is fuel economy. We want that on the x-axis versus horsepower on the y-axis. All right, so sometimes when people say plot something versus something, it's a little confusing. So if you just remember X versus Y, so fuel economy on the x-axis, horsepower on the y-axis. Okay, so this gives us a little bit of an issue when we do this in Excel. I'm going to show you why. Okay, so I want two things that I'm going to plot. All right, so I'm going to do a chart and I'm going to select the two things. So I told you, you can select them all and then delete the ones you don't want. It's just a matter of what you remember how to do. I played around with this, and you can select, if you hold the control key down, I think on Windows, command key on a Mac, I've got these two columns selected. Those are the two things I want to make a scatter plot for. Okay, and so here's the deal. We want X versus Y, okay? Which one was X? X I wanted in PG. Which one was Y? Y I wanted horsepower. Whatever comes first naturally falls in the X position. Whatever comes second falls in the Y position. So you see these are reversed, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at how to solve that problem. So I'm going to insert this scatter plot. No lines connecting them, as it said, and I get this, okay, and you know it's backwards from what I wanted, right? So I wanted fuel economy X, horsepower Y. I look at this chart. MPG is coming on the y-axis, horsepower is on the x-axis. I want that reversed. Okay, so I can select it and go to this select data, and basically the name that I want, okay, is showing here in cell G1. Okay, so G1 right here is in PG, and really what I want is horsepower there. Okay, so horsepower shows up over in column D. So I can change this to a D, and I need to flip the role of X and Y. So instead of a D, I can put a G. Instead of a D, I put a G. Okay, and over here for G, instead of a G, I put a D. So you get it. I just, instead of recopying the columns in a different order to fit Excel, I just went in there and edited what is X and what is Y. Okay, and so now I look at this. This is looking better in PGs, you know, down in this axis, horsepower on this axis. Okay, so from there you can, you know, format this a little nicer. You can add categories and titles of axes and stuff. So I'm not gonna, whoops, quick layouts, what I was after. I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail about how to do that. You can play around with different layouts till you get something that looks good and it has titles, and of course you can add chart elements like a chart title and so forth. Okay, so there's the quick walkthrough for part 3.